Good morning to any replayers. If you're a replayer, you can still participate. You can tap on the screen for hearts. You can share with anyone you think needs to hear it or would find this useful. And of course, you can find me on Twitter or on Snapchat at joannazarach. If you have any questions or comments, hi Anthony, good to see you here. If you have questions or comments, you can find me there and ask me. So, good morning to everybody that's joining in. Hi, KD67. Haven't worked out yet, so I'm in my gym clothes. Welcome. Thank you for sharing on Twitter, Anthony. Appreciate it. And inviting your followers. Hi, Espo10. So to those that are new to me, my name is Joanna Zarach, and I broadcast every morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, so Chicago time. And I talk about money habits, and I do this 7 days a week. I've been doing this, I've been at this since middle of October. So so a couple of things. So I do that, and I do a Money Matters broadcast. And actually today at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be doing a Money Matters. So that's 5 p.m. Central. Today's Money Matters is actually going to be on Schedule A and Schedule C. So diving a little bit deeper on what you need to be keeping track of in terms of your tax deductions. I think most people, this will apply, probably cover 95% of people who do any types of deductions. Only a small percentage of people really require the advice of a CPA. Most people really would benefit from keeping track of their tax deductions, whether or not they hand over to tax preparer. We're going to talk about sort of key areas to keep track of in your tax deductions. So that's going to be at 5 p.m. at Money Matters. But today's topic on money habits, hey Melissa, is I want to continue from last week. So Tuesday we talked about a task, and today's task is to really figure out this right side of your financial freedom equation. So last week we started talking about the inputs of your financial freedom equation, and today we're going to continue with sort of what I consider the outputs. So one of the biggest factors that people forget about when they think about financial freedom, hi Cindy, is to really think through of what would it take to sustain them for their lifetime in terms of the spend side. Hi. And so what I want to talk about is really when you're looking and saying, what would it take for me to achieve financial freedom? Obviously, the inputs is the one thing. And that's what most people focus on. They say, you know what? You need to save X amount percentage. You need to get to this number. And most people think of it as getting to a peak and then spending down that money in retirement, which means that they actually, two things that happen. Whatever your income solution is, whatever your income is, you're spending the majority of it on your expenses and you're only saving a small portion. Two things that happen, you kind of get used to that lifestyle at that level. And what happens is that your number has to be much bigger to be able to spend down at the same rate. What I challenge you to do today, and the task for today, is to consider the categories. And I think the way people think about categories is to really think about first, what are your basic needs? And sometimes I refer to the Maslows Pyramid when I talk about, hi Ernest Adams, 18, when I talk about sort of covering the needs. And I'm going to show you the Maslow Pyramid. You can find, thank you, Anthony, I really appreciate it. Maslow's Pyramid. This is one of my favorite tools. I'm going to turn it sideways, see if it's going to look a little bit bigger. So you can Google it if you can't see this clearly. I highly recommend it. It's called Maslow's Pyramid. And basically it talks about, what to build up towards. And so one of the things that I want for people to cover is sort of the first three areas where it requires a certain amount of money. And so what I mean is, start listing your categories and building it out. So what are the categories of costs? Like, what do you need to live on? What do they cost? And what could they cost? Right? Here's the thing is, this is the types of categories I think about, and I want you to do these and kind of think about where do you spend all your money and what could you possibly live on? Because this is a really big part of your financial freedom equation. So shelter and safety. That's really all of the things that are required for you to feel secure. Now, the thing is that here's what I'm trying to get to that's a little different than a lot of other people, is that the majority of us are the major message out there is bigger is better, more is better. And so we move through life by upgrading, right? By trying to go and live in potentially a more expensive neighborhood, a bigger house. And we are constantly sort of stressing our financial influx by putting that money towards it. So what I challenge you is, first of all, ask yourself today, how much am I spending on shelter and safety? No, I don't speak Spanish. And when you get to it, ask yourself, actually, I'm going to find, do I have my stand? Because my hand's going to, here we go. Ask yourself, what am I spending on shelter and safety today? What can I be spending? And that could be more or less. So you may be at a time of your life when maybe you're still with roommates, or you're living in a part of the city that you're not quite happy about. You want to move, but ask yourself, how much are you going to spend on your shelter and safety? And be inclusive. So do the current exercise and do the future exercise. So how much today and how much in the future? And again, we're focusing on the future because you may ask yourself, what is it that I can live with, or what is it that I can, if you can move to a different city, if you can move to a different types of house or neighborhood, what can you do? What do you really need, right? That's a big factor in whether or not you can achieve financial freedom. Because the thing is this, if you're just spending relative to your earnings, if your spend and your earnings are kind of going up, that's really, really hard to achieve financial freedom. So you have to just change your mindset. The second category is nourishment. I call it nourishment because I think sometimes we get a little confused. We sort of vilify some of our nourishment, which is like eating out, and we focus on it. Why? Because eating out provides you nourishment. It just provides it at a much higher price. So you have to decide for yourself what it is that I want to spend on nourishment, including the services that other people give you by providing you with nutritious food. So do think about it. Say, how much am I spending on nourishment as a whole? Like the groceries I buy, the eating out, whatever else goes into your nourishment. These are the needs that you have. And ask yourself, how much do I want to be spending on it? And how are you going to achieve it, right? You can get a lot of the benefits, for example, of prepared food without actually going out to a restaurant every time. So actually think about those things and saying, if I'm going to stay in a nourishment budget, how am I going to divide it between sort of the prepared food or regular food? The other thing I think people underestimate or undervalue is just getting into a routine. If you have a nutritious food, it's okay to eat similar things day in and day out. I think variety is overrated. That's my approach. Okay, the third area I want you to think about is personal care. So what goes into personal care? Clothing is personal care. Makeup, hairstylist, like all of the things that in the first world, by the way, those are first world needs, because a lot of times when you're struggling, like you're just looking for something to keep you warm and something to keep clean or make sure it fits your size. But we sometimes spend a lot of money in our personal care budget. And ask yourself, what am I needing in that area, right? How can I give yourself, look at the overall picture. How much am I spending or my family is spending in personal care? And ask yourself, what do I need, right? If you spend less, if you, by the way, are financially free and you feel like, you know what, I don't need to buy suits and I don't need to do dry cleaning and I don't need to wear makeup and all of these things, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I can really shrink that category. Needs versus wants, right? You're still going to need some clothing, right? You don't want to, again, I'm not advocating extreme frugality, like have nothing. I'm like, it's a transition too, right? So one of the things that in my transition I've made is, I went from corporate consulting to small business consulting. Now I'm making sort of less money at it, but that's okay because I do it in a lot less time. But one of the things that I've also done is like, I don't have to buy fancy clothes. Those clothes cost a lot of money, and shoes, and in my house, you can kind of see it behind me. You can see it. It's a condo It's, it's not super fancy. It's very messy because I don't clean a lot. You can see that that's like the house. It's just a condo because, again, I applied the same principles that I'm trying to teach you guys. Like, I asked myself, how much house do I really need, right? Like, how much do I need? My husband bought this condo a long time ago, and, it's 1,600 square feet. And, like, I have a lot of friends with big houses, and I don't have a big house. But it's enough because I grew up in a tiny little apartment in Poland, and then like I never had my own bedroom. And so, you know what? It's going to be fine because part of it is like, what do you want more? I want financial freedom more than I want a big house. Big houses, man, they cost a lot of money. And not just like in the actual cost, the upkeep, the maintenance, the furnishings, and the time it takes. God, I don't like cleaning, so I don't like to have more space. I'm trying to get rid of stuff. Anyway, back to personal care. So personal care, really look at these. There's just really a few components. So shelter and safety was one. So look at all your household expenditures. What are you spending on having a secure home? Nourishment, that's all the things you spend on giving yourself nourishment for your food, like your literally food, and maybe vitamins or something. Personal care are the things like clothing, makeup, haircuts, all the things that we do to feel good about ourselves. And then health. As you get older, what you realize that health is going to take a bigger chunk of your expenditure. So make sure you have a category for health. And two things. One is we are very lucky now to be able to have accessible health insurance, which is about, thank you so much, which is about the number of, it's like you have to know the insurance, right? So like, first of all, know the cost of insurance, which is about $10,000 to $15,000 a year, that would go in, right? Like, so because if you don't have a job that pays for it, right, that's part of the package, you would need to cover it. You would need to either cover the insurance or you would need to start being self-insured, which means you would put away money every time. I would still recommend some sort of health insurance plan, just because the way that our sort of healthcare system is structured, your health insurance plan is actually the best for the discounts they get with your in-network provider. It's not actually the payment, it's the discounts. Okay, so health. Make sure you're budgeting for health. Having a gym membership or a personal trainer, whatever it is, health is an important budget. Another area, and then we're moving up a little bit on the Maslow Pyramid, is connection. And I've thought of this category as this broad category. Connection is like what you spend on visiting family or holiday parties or gifts for people, right? Like, we go to a lot of birthday party now because my kids are little and they're getting invites. And every time we go to a birthday party, we buy a gift. To me, it's a cost of connection. I want to have a budget for connection. So have that. Again, if you live far away from your family, part of it is travel costs, right? Have that as part of your budget. And again, it's like, what would it take for you to live financially free life? Look at the spend. And then self-improvement. We are fortunate enough that we can improve and we can learn and we can do things. And again, this is also in the family, like self-improvement would be education for yourself or for your children, right? What's your budget? What's going to be your spend? So those are the categories that I came up with. I know that there are others, but those are the ones where I said, look, these are the must-haves, right? These are some of the must-haves of kind of functioning in our society, of feeling good about ourselves. Again, going up Maslow's pyramid, maybe you want to invest in a business, invest in your own business or start a business. But those are the things that would allow you to figure out what would it take on the output, on the sort of the right side of the equation for financial freedom. Because what I'm trying to get you to do is figure out what is the number that I would need for me to feel like I have the basics covered. So again, it's not to say you can't work for luxuries and you can't have more in life. I encourage everyone to feel fulfilled, but what I'm trying to tell you is the right side of the equation will really determine when and if you get to financial freedom. And when you figure out the right side of the equation, two things happen. One is you all of a sudden realize that your income has a lot more savings than you realized, because you've been sort of keeping up, your spending's been keeping up with your earnings. But if you lower the spending, based on what your cost categories would be, you're going to create a greater savings buffer. And therefore, you're going to get to financial freedom faster. You're actually going to build up to your number so much faster. The other thing is you're going to recognize this is all I need to live on. And then it's going to be more achievable. But if you're always chasing, if your spending is chasing your income, and for most people it's actually over the income, which is kind of like mind-blowing sometimes to me. I'm like, you're overspending, right? You're earning a really good income, but you're overspending. And you need to get the discipline. But one of the ways to do it is to do the exercise. So let me give you the snapshot. So here it is. Find your categories. And again, think of them as broad categories, right? What are you currently spending on these areas? And what could they cost instead, right? It's your current versus future. Because as I also talk about, about my business consulting, nothing just happens. Like nothing happens. Everything just keeps going the way it is without you taking action. And before you take action, you have to have some sort of realization, right? And to me, the most powerful thing that I contribute to the world is the realization through numbers. And to me, numbers are really, really powerful because they just are. They just are. You just look at it and say, so ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself, how much am I spending in these categories? And do I want to be spending that? Or do I want to be spending something different? Because again, that's really going to impact your financial equation. As I'm working through my little spreadsheet that I was like, oh, I'll throw the spreadsheet together. So tomorrow we're going to look at the output and how you vary both the spend relative to your current income and how it impacts how quickly you'll grow to the financial freedom number. And then show you that on the other side, once you get to a number, it's only going to be a financial freedom if you're not spending down from it, right? And so that spend number is so critical to you getting to that point where you feel like, wow, I never have to worry. Again, we're trying to get people to worry less about money. And if you don't have to worry about the basics in life, then you can concentrate on putting your effort where you can sustainably contribute to the world, whatever your gift is, and make money at it. Again, I'm not like, I don't see the requirements to be idleness and retirement as I want to be idle because I'm no longer able to work. I want to see people achieve financial freedom sooner so that they are capable, that they give themselves permission to take a bit more risk to contribute to the world the sustainable gifts that they have. Because again, I want for money to be less of a factor. I want the basic needs in life to be less of a factor for people. And what you and I need to know is that structurally, our financial system's not built that way because it does not benefit the owners, the corporate owners, the intergenerational wealth holders, for you to focus on what you're good at because they need labor. They need for you to put in the effort against their capital investment of what they thought was a good idea. Because that's how they make money. Like, that's why I'm not going to get off on a tangent, but that's how, if you really take a look in the world and see where money is and where money has been, money hasn't changed that much hands. Yes, we've had new people take a place in sort of the upper echelons, new people with power and new people with money, but most money in our world has been held by the same families for generations. Intergenerational wealth is just something really powerful to understand. And then you need to know how money gets made in that framework. And you and I, stepping away from that by becoming financially free ourselves, doesn't contribute to the owner's benefit. All of a sudden, you're benefiting yourself because you can choose to not participate because you have financial freedom. But the messages are not there for people to have some self-discipline and say, look, this is all I need. So that's the task for today. I do challenge you to go through and look at your categories of your basic needs spend and say, how much am I spending today and what it is that I want to be spending in the future. And again, it could be more or less. You can be like, hey, you know what? I don't want to live with 3 roommates in a $600 a month apartment. Totally respect that. ask yourself, what will it take? So that you have a better idea, right? So you have a better idea of what it would take and what would satisfy you. And then don't forget that number when you start growing that income, because all of a sudden you get to the $1,800 apartment, or you got a mortgage and it's $1,800, and all of a sudden you start looking wistfully into the future. It's like, if I could just have that $4,000 a month house, would life be better? Well, no, you're never going to achieve financial freedom. It's just going to outspend your earnings. Anyway, that's my spiel for today. Tomorrow we'll be looking at this equation. I want to demonstrate to you how much this has an impact on how quickly you can achieve financial freedom and how long it'll last you through numbers, through this like interactive dynamic spreadsheet, I suppose. And I'm excited about it, as I get excited about all spreadsheets and that demonstrate something. And so that's tomorrow morning on Walk the Walk. I'm trying to achieve a smaller sort of financial footprint for my needs as well. That's why I have made certain choices about, where we live, where my kids go to school. All of these things are playing into it. And then if you want to join tonight at 5 p.m. Central Time, I will be doing Money Matters on the things you need to track for tax deductions, and specifically focusing on Schedule A and Schedule C. So we're going to dive in depth into Schedule A and Schedule C of the 1040 form. So that's at 5 p.m. on Money Matters, because I love taxes and it's tax season. And those are the two key areas, the two key forms that everybody needs to learn in our tax code, because they're very, very powerful. So thank you so much for everybody that joined today. I hope to see you another time. You can again follow me on Twitter, follow me on Snapchat, and now I'm supposed to start advertising. And I love live streaming so much that I'm doing a speaker engagement on April 7th in Normal, Illinois. It's a small social media conference, but I'm enjoying sort of getting into this public speaking up in stage instead of just on the screen. And so I'm going to be talking about Periscope April 7th, and it's called At Midwest. So if you're in the Midwest and you want to, check it out, it's in Normal, Illinois. I'll see you. I'm going to tweet out something about it. Anyway, good to see you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.